Hi everyone, I hope you guys are doing good. So as a part of our Liquibase tutorial series, in last lectures we learned about preconditions and also learned about creating triggers using Liquibase. Now in this lecture we will learn about Liquibase properties. Okay, so without wasting time, let's start. So first I will go in Liquibase documentation, right? So when you go in Liquibase documentation, go inside changelog. In that, click on this substituting properties in changelog. Okay, so then you will find a documentation substituting properties in changelog. So what is substituting properties in changelog? Okay, so in Liquibase we can declare some properties. Okay, we can declare some property variable, kind of variable, which will store some values, and those values can be replaced, right? Can be replaced or can be substituted in your changelog dynamically. Okay, so that is called substitution of properties in changelog. So we'll see an example. So we'll scroll down and we'll see an XML example. So in this XML example, you can see there is a change set where we are creating a table, right? So table name is there, right? Then column names are there, right? And then their data types are there. So in the first example, if you see, we have declared a property called name, right? And the property name is glob type, right? Property name is glob type and the value is glob, right? Again, second property, same property we have declared using name attribute and the value is long test, right? So whenever, what is this glob type, right? So this glob type, if you'll see, is the data type of this column, column number second, right? Column 1 dot name, for which the data type is glob type, right? So data type will be set as glob when we will deploy in Oracle and Postgres database. If we deploy the same change set in MySQL database, then the value will be set as long test, right? The data type, right? So properties are nothing, dynamic variable, right? So this is a glob type, which is a variable, and it has different values, right? Glob and long test based on the environment in which it is getting deployed, right? So we can set based on the database or based on the context, we can set the value of these variables glob type, right? And that will be replaced dynamically in your change log, depends on the deployment, right? Depends on the database deployment on which you are deploying the change log, right? So let's see our own example. So I have prepared one example. Okay, so let's go in Postgres Liquibase folder. Okay, so in that src main Java operation changelog. Okay, we are in release 1.0 1.0. So in that, in public table release. Okay, so in that, I have added a create table. Okay, so create table changelog is added. So table name is employee detail. Okay, so table name is employee detail. Schema name, for schema name I have used property. Okay, so property, how we declare, using dollar and in bracket the property name, right? So schema name is my variable or property name, right? So that will be replaced dynamically, right? We'll set the schema name value. So this is my employee detail table, which has three column: employee ID, employee name, and employee address, right? Also, after creation of table, we are giving grants, right? So while giving grants, also in schema name, I have used the dynamic variable, right? For schema name, in both alter and grant, I have used schema name as a dynamic variable, right? So that will be replaced dynamically. This variable dollar schema name is a variable. The value will be substituted at runtime. Okay. So where we are setting the value. Okay. So in master changelog.xml, right? So generally we keep all our properties in our final master changelog XML. Okay. So whatever your final master changelog XML, right? In that you can keep all your properties which you are declaring, right? So I have declared a property, right? Property name is schema name, right? Schema name, and value is public and value is app, right? And context is dev and context is perf, right? So whenever I'll deploy my change set with context dev, then public schema will be used. Schema name variable will be replaced with value public, right? And when I deploy with perf, the schema name variable will be replaced with app, right? That means whenever I'll deploy this change set with context as dev, right? First one context as dev, then the schema name value will be public, right? So our table will get created in public schema, right? This employee detail will get created in public schema, right? But if I deploy my change set with context as perf, right? Then schema name will be perf, right? Schema name is app. Schema name is app in case of context perf, right? So whenever I will give context as perf, right? So schema name will be app, right? So in app schema, my table will be created, right? So it will be dynamically substituted, right? Based on the context which I am passing while deploying the Liquibase, right? Schema name value will be dynamically substituted in your change log, right? This is the change log where I'm using this property schema name, right? Let's see the demo. Okay, so we are going to deploy this change set, right? So first we'll have to cd into this path, right? Let's open PowerShell, Windows PowerShell, and let me just enlarge a little bit so that you can see it clearly. Okay, so now I'm in my change log folder, right? So in changelog folder, I have to deploy this Liquibase command. Okay, so if you see in first Liquibase command, when I'm running it, so I'm deploying in employee database, right? And my context is dev. Okay, so I'm deploying in dev environment, right? So let's check first what are the database change log in our employee database, right? So this is our employee database. Let's check the all the database change log. Okay, so this is our change log, right? Create employee detail table. This is our change set. Create employee detail table, right? So let's check if we have any entry in our database change log. No entry right now, right? In employee database. Okay. So we are deploying in our employee database, right? So in my case, I'm deploying in this employee database, right? But in your case, it can be dev environment, like it can be employee underscore dev, right? And then it can be employee underscore perf database, right? Like that, you can have multiple environments your for your work, right? So if you are deploying in dev environment, right? So you have to give database as employee underscore dev, right? So your and context will be dev, right? Context will be dev, right? And then you have to give the host name of your dev dev environment, right? So host name will be of dev environment. This local host will be for dev environment, and in case of perf, you have to give your perf environment host, right? In my case, just to demo you guys, we are using local environment, right, where we have employee database, right? So I'm going to deploy the same change set as dev and perf using the context. Okay, so context I'm keeping it as dev and perf, right? So let's deploy first dev. Okay, so in case of context dev, what will happen? Okay, let me just paste it here and let's just check again in case of dev what will happen when we deploy context as dev. So value will be placed as public for schema name, right? So schema name will be public, right? So our employee detail table will be created in public schema, right? Grant will also be given to public dot employee detail, right? So that is expectation, right? Now let's run this command, enter. So deployment is successful, right? Update was successful. Let's check our create this one. This is the change, right? Create employee detail table, right? That is executed properly. Now let's check our change log. So our change log is good. Create employee detail table executed, right? Now let's go in our public schema and let's check if our table got created. So let me just refresh this table. So you can see employee detail table got created, right? This is our employee detail table got created in public schema, right? Now, suppose you want to deploy the same change set in Perf in your Perf environment, right? But in that case, in when you deploy in Perf environment, right? So you want to create that table in app schema instead of public schema, right? That's why we have set this properties, right? Dynamic properties. So now, if I'll deploy as same Liquibase command and I'm just changing the context as perf, right? So I'm deploying on perf, right? Giving all you always give all your perf URL, right? So in my case, both dev and perf is local only, right? But you give your perf URL here, right? And context as perf, right? Then you can deploy the change set, right? So if I'll now run with context as perf, right? So I'm giving context as perf now. If I deploy that, right? But before that, let's increment the change set since I'm deploying on same environment. In your case, you will be deploying on different environment, so you don't need to increment the change set. In case of dev or perf, same 1.0, 1.0 will be executed. But since I'm deploying same change set again on my local database, right? So I'm incrementing this change set. So let me just save it, right? And let's just run the Liquibase command with context as perf, right? So this is the second one, right? So what will happen if we run the our Liquibase command with context as perf, right? So what will happen? Let's go in our master change log, right? When we deploy context as perf, the schema name variable or property, the value will be app, right? So in this change log, the schema name will be replaced with app, right? So this table will be created in app schema in employee database, right? And grant will also be given on app.employee table, right? So right now let's check if public schema has this table, right? App schema has any table or not. Let's check that. So let me refresh. No table in app schema, right? So now we can run this Liquibase command. Let's hit enter. So our run was successful, right? And where we should have this is the change set, right? Create employee detail table 1.0 1.1, right? So our change set was executed successfully. Let's check in our log table, right? So you can see 1.0 1.1 was successful, right? And it should create a table in our app schema. Let's refresh tables in app schema, right? So you can see employee detail table is got created in app schema, right? App.employee detail, and the grant is also given to app.employee detail, right? So I hope you guys understood the use of properties in Liquibase, right? So properties are there to set the dynamic variables and their values, right? And you can put conditions, right? You can put context or DBMS database as a conditions, right? So whenever we'll deploy using this context, using dev, right? Then this schema name variable will be replaced with public value and whatever value we set, right? Based on depends on the context that what value will be put in our property, right? That will depend on the context, right? So in this case, we are creating same table, but when we are deploying it in dev environment, so it is creating in public schema. When we are deploying in perf environment, it is creating in app schema, right? So if you have some use cases like that, that you have some change set and dynamically you want to make some changes based on the environment, then you can definitely use these properties and set the properties values, right? And while running the Liquibase command, you can apply the context or database DBMS, right? And then based on the context or DBMS, your properties will be set, right? Your variable will be set, dynamic values, and your change set weights will act accordingly, right? So I hope you guys like this lecture. If you guys like this lecture, please subscribe my channel. Thank you guys.